Very good evening to everyone. We at Naredco are glad to present another series of knowledge webinars under Naredco Realty Bridge, where industry experts will share insights on technical aspects to improve profitability and enhance knowledge. Before we begin, I would like to share a brief about Naredco. Naredco was established as an autonomous self-regulatory body in 1998. It was formed by the then Housing Minister, Mr. Ram Jethmalani ji, under the aegis of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Naredco has always and will continue to strive for uplifting the real estate industry and act as a bridge between developers and the government. The main objective of Naredco is to induce transparency and ethics in real estate business and transform the Indian real estate sector into a globally competitive business sector. Today's webinar is on a very interesting and broad topic of redevelopment with combination schemes for improved profitability and premium reduction benefits. Few key points to be discussed are schemes of redevelopment, premium reduction benefit, and stamp duty implications, tenant in redevelopment, society redevelopment, and details on central business districts. With this, I would like to welcome our esteemed guests and leaders for today's webinar. Thank you.
So friends, a very good evening. I welcome my National President, Niranjan Hiranandani, Dr. Hiranandani in absentee, Rajan Bandelkar, Vice President, my colleagues, Dharmesh Chheda, Kamlesh, Rishabh, Architect Milind Changani, Architect Yomesh Rao, Gopalji, Aarti, Hitesh, and all the others who are participating with us. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all for the first session of our Naredco Realty Bridge. You know why Realty Bridge is because we are going to have all our industry leaders participating in this knowledge and guidance webinars. I personally feel that knowledge sharing is the most important aspect of our industry. We usually, work in close quarters, but at Naredco, we have seen that how one can, hold each other's hands and walk together is very important. This series, will empower our members with adequate knowledge. We're going to have this every month. The next one, I can assure you, will be in February. Sometime we'll fix the date. It'll be on PMAY, where we'll have the Chief Secretary to grace it. Today's session is going to be divided in two parts, as Rishabh just told us. One will be on the reduction of premiums, which has just come recently. There are a lot of questions in people's mind. I mean, they require clarity, which of course Yomesh and his team is going to enlighten us. The second part of it will be about what is, what are the benefits 33.7, A, B, 33.12, as well as 33.19. What benefits we can get, how we can utilize the entire potential in commercial to get 5 FSI. Both our speakers, along with Architect Manoj Desaria, will enlighten us about these topics. And I'm now looking forward to participate with your participation in both these sessions. I request you to be around with us till 7 o'clock this evening and get the maximum benefit. Our friends Yomesh and Milind and Manoj have really worked and burned the midnight oil to give us, to share their knowledge, which otherwise, I will be paying huge millions of rupees fees to these architects, which you are going to get free today. So once again, welcome you all. And I now announce this session as open. Abhijit, for you to take it ahead.
So we have Rajan sir also who is joined us.
Yeah, welcome Rajan sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and sorry for coming late, sir.
Rajan, we want to hear a few words from you. The audience wants to hear from you.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, friends. this is ki under young entrepreneur and ever smiling president of our Ashok Munani, this is his thought, his idea to educate each and every developer. And we have young team of architects, Milind Changani as well as Yomesh Rao. योमेश राव मैं देख रहा हूँ उसका वो क्या बोलते हैं बॉडी पकड़ के बैठा हुआ है कि भाई देखो कैसे डोले शोले बता रहा है योमेश राव. So Milind, this is an hint to you that you should also make your body और डोले शोले दिखाना चाहिए. So coming back to the basic point is that ki, see, because real estate is going through a very tough time and everybody's balance sheets are in red. So these two gentlemen are going to show us from red how can we come into orange, and then finally if we are very wise then it can come into green also. We have our young brigade also. I can see Rishabh Shiraya also there on the panel, as well as Kamlesh is there, who is Joint Secretary, Hitesh Bhaktani, Gopal Narang is also there, and especially Abhay Kele also has joined in from Pune. So I wish entire team who are working under this a very good luck and a very good beginning, and hope to see many more seminars and webinars like this. Thank you Ashok sir, thank you very much.
Yeah, so Rishabh, yeah, you would like Yomesh to take over?
Yes, absolutely. But just before he starts, I think I should probably give a brief about Yomesh sir and Milind sir. So Yomesh sir has almost 22 years of operational and strategic experience in real estate and construction industry across India. With a bachelor's degree in engineering, he started his career as a site engineer with Raheja Group based in Mumbai. His knowledge and experience in technical due diligence, project approvals and clearances throughout the life cycle of real estate projects has gained him considerable respect from regulatory authorities. He is the chairman of CVS RTA, presently honorary secretary to the PIATA, and a member of the Institution of Engineers. When it comes to construction, he's been there, done that, but is still willing to learn. Undertaking projects initially limited in Bombay and then moving into pan-India by studying and understanding local rules and regulations of various cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chandigarh, Haryana, Chennai, Goa. He has studied law as a hobby and is a qualified LLB and subsequently completed his master's in law. That is Miss Architect Yomesh Rao sir, and now with Architect Milind Changani ji. He is also the co-founder of CY Corp and proprietor of BNSA. The company CY Corp has over 250 running projects in city and suburbs and has been practicing over 17 years now. A variety of projects in residential, education, commercial, hospitals. Milind sir has been known for his specialty for redevelopment projects in 33.7, 33.9 and other schemes, including municipal tenanted schemes of redevelopment. He has been actively involved in policy matters at various levels in UD Estate and MCGM Estate. He is involved with various organizations like PIATA, CMDWA, Somura and Naredco. He is a member of Naredco and co-chairman for subcommittee of redevelopment and currently worked on the new policy on 33.7 and 33.9, which was issued on 18th November 2020. So I would like a big hand of applause for both our guests today.
Okay, thanks, Rishabh. We are really honored that we have our National President, Dr. Niranjan Hirani, with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And friends, you must know that Niranjan sir has just defeated COVID hands down, and he's with us. So over to you, Niranjan sir, for your inspirational words, please.
Thank you very much, Ashok Monani. I've just been out of COVID, so it's thank God that I really got away with it without too much problem at all. And though it took me 2 weeks to get out of it, but it's been an experience. So please be careful. And those who haven't got it, please try and see that you maintain your masks and other things still till you get your vaccination. So really take care. I'm so glad that we are, on this learning mission. I think this is extremely important because up till now, a lot of developers, all the people connected with the real estate industry actually were not knowledgeable enough, and people felt that they were really not contributing in terms of learning experience that we have today. With kind of leadership that we have over here at NAREDCO West and all the other people who are there, I think a world of difference is being seen, where I think this learning mission is taking place, contributing, interacting with government, trying to see that policy changes are done, whether it's been for the stamp duty, whether it's been for the ready reckoner rate issues, whether it's been for the premiums that we are fighting for. And of course, we have to be grateful to the government because they have been proactive. In fact, probably in India, the most proactive government of all in terms of it, and this is recognized by one and all. So we have to be grateful to them in order to do it, but we cannot let go our efforts in order to continue this mission. So my heartiest congratulations, Ashok, and to the whole team, which is actually doing it. And I think what a wonderful team you have gathered today. So I'm looking forward to learn a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And we have architect Manoj Desaria also with us. Manoj, would you like to share your views?
Yeah, hello, Ashok ji. Hello, Niranjan bhai. I think it's a great session. And now, what are the premiums have been reduced? Of course, there are going to be a lot of questions because what will happen to the existing ongoing projects, that also needs to be thrashed out. I happened to discuss with Chief Engineer, DP, where he suggested that they are coming out with the circular policy, and they have requested NAREDCO also, okay, you raise your FAQs and we will try to answer it so that it can be implemented. It should not happen like a transition policy where after DCPR, we took almost 2 years to implement that. So this has to be done as early as possible, because otherwise the whole steam will go out. And if the circular comes out after 3-4 months, then implementation time will be hardly left out. So what I request is we need to take up, I'm preparing the appeal letter and the FAQs with our team, Milind and Yomesh and Manoj Dubal and all. So we will try to send it as early as possible. And it's going to be a great session. Milind and Yomesh are our frontline speakers. They will always give a lot of knowledge to the entire team. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Manojji. Yomesh, the dais is all yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ashokji. Thank you, Rishabh, for the wonderful thing. Thank you, Manoj bhai. Thank you, Niranjan sir, Rajan sir, and Milind, my CY Corp colleague. So, Changani Yomesh for you to know. I'll just start the presentation. I'll start the presentation which we have prepared for you. Milind's presentation is going to be a lot more elaborate. The reason being he's covering 3312B and 337A, which is there. And I'm going to look at the two regulations, which are very important as well for the redevelopment of the city. So just of the knowledge series that NAREDCO has started, the bridge, NAREDCO Realty Bridge. The first thing we need to understand is that the city of Mumbai has so many cooperative housing societies. And one aspect of being in Mumbai is that all these societies are up for redevelopment. We all know that there's always been a circular or a notification or a policy which the government intended to bring for self-redevelopment, which was just a policy, but the implementation of the same is still pending. We are still awaiting what kind of incentives they would give for self-redevelopment. Having said that, let us understand right now, what do the regulations have in store for societies to redevelop? Now, the societies can be redeveloped either by themselves or by developers or by whatever other ways. So let's go into the regulations directly so that we directly hop into the regulatory things and understand the knowledge, and we can have a lot of interactive session, understanding and questions later. So going to the first part of the topic is 33.7b, which is the topic of society redevelopment. Subsequently, we'll go to 33.19, which is the central business district. So going to the topic, coming to this, CY Corp is BNSA, YMSCL and Studio C, that's Milind and me. The first regulation that we're going to cover in the Realty Bridge is 33(7)(b). Now, as we all know, as developers, you always look at FSI as a concept because the floor space index is the most integral part of understanding what is the development potential of the plot. Of course, what we're going to further discuss about this is what are the implications of premiums, what kind of money needs to be spent to get that kind of FSI, and whether it is right or wrong. We need to come to that. So as regards FSI, there are also certain categories, as we always call the regulation 33 of DCPR 2034, which was also there in DCR 1991. Regulation 33 is a very special regulation because ये regulation जो है ये आपको FSI extra देता है. So this is the regulation which gives you extra FSI. So we have a lot of regulation 33. Today we are covering some of them. So 33(7)(b) is a regulation which is newly brought in to the DCPR 2034, where it says that all the societies which are more than 30 years old are eligible to have an incentive. Now let's go into that. Now, reading the text of it, 33(7)(b) is the additional FSI for redevelopment of existing residential housing societies. This is what the word is written. In the regulation, it's written as existing residential housing societies. And we all know that older days, we had residential societies with convenience shops on the ground floor, or maybe shops on the ground floor. So we'll see what is the implication of this term later on. Going to this aspect, let's go. So when we go for a redevelopment of an existing residential housing society, which is proposed by the housing society, it's also mentioned landlords. I don't know how it can be because deemed conveyance is already come in, but through developers or landlords or societies themselves, where a very key important part about this incentive is that the existing members should be re-accommodated. So it's not that you just buy out everybody and then you redevelop and you get an incentive. No, you don't. So it's only if all the existing society members are rehabilitated, re-accommodated on the same redeveloped building, then you are eligible for an incentive. Now, what is the incentive that the BMC or the corporation or the government has decided to give to the city is that an incentive FSI of 15% of the built-up area of whatever is your existing built-up area, 15% of that will be free to you. So generally on a plot area of 1,000 square meters, let's assume an example, everybody has consumed 1,000 square meters. In the suburbs, in the city, it would be 1.33 or even more if it was prior to 1971. So existing FSI, whatever is their existing FSI consumed, 15% you get as incentive. So for that, you don't have to make any charges. That is free to you. Now, there is also a caveat over here that it is 15% of existing built-up area or 10 square meter per member. Now, the idea is that in the suburbs or distant suburbs, you have societies with having very small flats. And you have maybe in 1,000 square meter, 15% would be 150, but there would be maybe 25 members in the society. So then in that case, the incentive will be not 150 square meters, the incentive will be 250 square meters because the incentive is of 10 square meters per member. Now, this is what is written in the DCPR. However, as we progressed in the interpretation of DCPR, we have come to know that the incentive of 10 square meters is available only to the residential members. So if you have those shops down, they are not eligible for the 10 square meters. That's fine. But 15%, if you are giving an incentive, then it is on the entire built-up area, including the built-up area of the commercial. Now, if your staircase is counted in FSI, the incentive is even on that portion. So this is the incentive that is available to every society redevelopment. So when you want to give this or you want to avail this incentive, obviously you have to have an approved plan to show, or there are criteria of how to ascertain these incentives. We'll come to that when we go into the discussion mode. Let me read the regulations first. So that is how it is that you will have an incentive over on your existing built-up area. Now, the regulation 30, the FSI concept of DCPR is as per road width. Now, if your existing built-up area plus incentive is lesser than your potential of FSI as per regulation 30, which is FSI 2, 2.2, 2.4, 2.7 or 3, then you can avail the remaining area by taking TDR, taking government FSI and loading fungible over it and increasing your potential. So the total potential of the project remains as per regulation 30. However, your existing plus incentive is what is available to you without charging any premium. That is the concept of society redevelopment, 33(7)(b) incentive. Now, coming to the aspect, there is one key aspect which many developers may have missed. What happens is that understanding and taking a copy of your existing building is very important because you have to verify that the staircase areas, if at that point in time when the society was built in 1980s or maybe 1975 or 1985 or 1989, because 30 years basically means prior to 1990. So if prior to 1990, the society building built had paid staircase premium at that point in time. So if it had paid staircase premium for 100 square meters, then for 100 square meters of staircase in the new building, you don't have to pay any premium. So that is the concept of protected development under Regulation 30C. The same has been given also in 33(7)(b), that whatever staircase areas premiums the existing building has paid for, that much extent of staircase premium you don't have to pay. So that's a very good thing. Please remember this. For that, you need to prove that there is an exemption of staircase area in your existing plan. Now, even if the exemption of staircase earlier in the 1967 DCR, just to go on a knowledge base, in the 1967 DCR, staircase were always counted in FSI. However, in 1971, there was a circular by the government which said that staircases could be exempted. So ideally, on a theoretical basis, those buildings prior to 1971 would definitely not have staircase exempted from FSI, because at that point in time, staircases are counted in FSI. However, after 1971, if your building is built, I would suggest and recommend that everybody checks their plans of the existing building. So you can check if the staircase is exempted from FSI, you might be eligible to get some additional monetary benefit by virtue of the staircase being exempted at that point in time. So very clearly reading in that regulation is that if the staircase areas are claimed free of FSI by charging premium as per the then prevailing regulation, then such areas to the extent that were granted free without charge will be granted without charging premium. So that is the aspect of free of FSI without charging premium. However, if the staircase is counted in FSI, I mean, at that point in time, let's say it was counted in FSI, the developer did not pay a premium because at that point in time, FSI was not as precious as it is now. Of course, it must have been precious, but not really as much as now. But the idea is that if that case, the incentive of 15% would include the staircase area also. So that is a very good thing that you need to understand under 33(7)(b). So ideally, whenever any developer or any architect has to look at the concept of 33(7)(b) as a development, I would always recommend and suggest that you try to see and get a copy of the existing structure plan, which could benefit a lot to you. Now, the aspect, coming to the point that everybody in the society has to be rehabilitated. Having said that, legally speaking, those existing members can always sell their flats. So that's not an issue. They are transferable commodities, so they can sell their flats. So the key condition that has to be looked at is that the redevelopment of existing authorized buildings, which are 30 years of age or more. Now, if you don't have any proof of 30 years, how do you say that the building is more than 30 years? So there are two criteria for it. First is that your occupation certificate should be prior to 30 years of the day you submit. Let's say if it is submitted today in January 21, then your OC should be prior to 1991. That's the idea. So if your OC is that. In case you don't have a copy of the OC, then the BMC has, in the regulation, it is mentioned that the first date of assessment, because whenever a building, because in Bombay, we know there are so many buildings which have no OC. And right now, these kind of buildings are also being redeveloped. So many buildings which had no OC and people have been living in it for the past 30, 35, 40 years. And they come up for redevelopment. They don't have an occupation certificate for their existing building. But then they would always have a first date of assessment, because whenever they occupied the premises, the BMC property tax department would have been very sharp enough to levy a property tax on them the moment they started occupying. So their first date of assessment will be considered as the date to understand whether the structure is 30 years old or not. Now, the one thing that I have encountered in one of my projects, or maybe 2-3 of my projects, which also you might encounter, which probably we could look into the government to look at, is that certain buildings were constructed for a period of 7-10 years, and subsequently they got OC later on. And I have one such building which was actually declared dilapidated, and it has been demolished, and the age of the building was 28 years. So unfortunately, the building is demolished. It required redevelopment. It is actually going for redevelopment, but they will not be getting any incentive because the regulation does not specify anything less than 30 years, even if it is declared dangerous and dilapidated under Section 354 of the MMC Act. So this is one aspect which we need to understand. Probably NAREDCO as an association, PIATA as an association, and other associations can look to probably asking for something from the government at the later point. Now, fungible FSI of existing built-up area, this has been there since 2012. That the existing built-up area, whatever is the existing built-up area, the fungible of that is free. Now, incidentally, the fungible is 35% across the spectrum for all users. So 35% of your existing built-up area is going to be free fungible for you without charging any premium. So the idea is that whenever you do a redevelopment, the existing member will always get 35% extra area by virtue of free fungible. Having said that, the fungible cost is not there, but the development charges has to be paid on that as well. So in case the scenario of redevelopment is a very tricky or a very borderline scenario, a developer can consider going on the other direction. Having said that, he cannot use it for his own use unless there has been a resale, which we have recently seen in a couple of cases, which we can have in the question answer sessions. Now, the only thing is that the regulation has been very clearly earmarked in 33.7b. It has been earmarked that in 33.7b, which is a society redevelopment, this 15% incentive will not be given to the proposals under redevelopment under 33.5. Now, this is MADA. In MADA, you directly have 3 FSI. So is in 33.7, you directly have gross plot area 3 FSI, which Milind is an expert in. So here, when there is already an incentive in FSI, there will be no further incentive of society ka 15% or 10 square meters per member. Neither there will be any incentive of 33.7b for cases under, even for societies under 33.5, 33.7, 33.8, 9, 9a. Now these are urban renewal schemes because they're also the incentive FSI is more. 33.10, 33.10a is the slum rehabilitation schemes, and 33.20 is the accommodation reservation. Sorry, AH. It is this weaker section housing scheme. Having said that, these regulations will not get any incentive of society, but there are also instances of societies having tenants in the chawl. Like we have encountered so many societies which were built by keeping the existing tenants because they did not vacate their premises. The society was constructed, the society got the conveyance of the whole land, and there is a chawl on the left side or a right side or whatever side, and these tenants in the chawls are the tenants of the society. Now the land is conveyed to the society, the owner of the land is the society, which can go for 33.7b. Also at the same time, there are tenants in the land. So in such scenarios, 33.7a can be actually combined with 33.7b, where the proposal combination will be in proportionate land basis. So the FSI will be segregated of how much FSI the tenant is having, how much FSI the society is having. Likewise, the proportionate land will be divided and the incentive will be given and the FSI will be given on that basis. So the proposal can be combined with the 33.7a. This is the scheme as far as 33.7b is concerned. Now, 33.7b society redevelopment is a very, very simple regulation per se. It's got only 8 points in the regulation DCPR. So you can actually read it in 2 minutes and the whole regulation goes away. It took me more time to give you a presentation than the time it took me to read those 8 points. Having said that, the problem is that when you read those 8 points with 10 different perspectives, the interpretation of those same points appear to be different. So these are the things which we encounter as professionals, and we actually deliberate and actually argue with the government and the BMC to understand it in a way which has been the spirit of the regulations. So that is as far as the regulation of 33.7b society redevelopment is concerned. We are hoping that the government comes up with the self-redevelopment incentive as well, which probably could do a lot of things for redevelopment of societies. There are so many issues that we face for redevelopment of societies, such as many societies are actually on 6-meter roads, and those societies cannot be developed unless the road is widened to 9 meters. And unfortunately, though the DCPR 2034 mentioned that road setback will be over and above the FSI as per regulation, so it will be 2 plus the road setback over and above it, or 2.2 plus road setback over and above it. Subsequently, there was a modification, and because of which the road setback over and above has been kept in abeyance, and the road setback is within the cap of TDR. So this aspect of the regulation, which has been released in 33.19, is causing a little deterrent as 33.7b. Having said that, moving ahead, Milind will be giving you insight of how 33.7b FSI of 2, 2.2, 2.4, 2.7, and 3 can be further enhanced up to 4 by going a different route. That is the aspect which Milind Changani will be covering up subsequently. I will be closing this incentive because this is a regular residential building redevelopment or a regular development where the FSI cap is there. Society will have an incentive of 15% or 10 square meters per member, considering it is more than 30 years old. And that is what are the key, very simple aspects of redevelopment. Free fungible will be given to the societies. In case you don't have your OC plan, you can always go to the first date of assessment for the sake of 30 years. Also for free fungible, there is a circular separately given by the MCGM, where they have given criteria of how fungible free can be given. We can discuss that subsequently. Now going to the next aspect, which is a very critical aspect, a very, very beautiful enhancement of FSI scheme, That is regulation 3319. And trust me, it has been misread and misinterpreted in various corners and by many people. So let's read this regulation. This is also a very simple regulation. And the regulation is basically additional FSI to be granted for commercial user development. Oh, unfortunately, I've written FSI as FIS, my mistake. But commercial user development, we call it as central business district. In fact, when we understand CBD, we understand Belapur. It's not Belapur. It is a central business district. Is basically a cluster of commercial developments which caters to employment generation. And that is precisely why the government decided to give a lot of incentive for commercial development. And they have enhanced the FSI substantially to cater to the employment generation opportunity in this country, considering the population of this country. So this CBD FSI is applicable to every plot, whether it is in residential zone, whether it is in commercial zone. If your plot is in industrial zone, currently there is no TDR and there is no government FSI applicable to you. You have one FSI. So obviously you'll have to convert your industrial zone to commercial zone by using regulation 14B, giving amenity and the premium for conversion. Then your plot comes into commercial zone and then you can develop the property for CBD. The FSI of CBD is up to 5. Now, coming to the CBD aspect of this thing, there is one wonderful provision within the CBD. The regulation of CBD, Central Business District 3319, is actually, if you read the regulation, there are 2 components to the regulation. Let's read it one by one. So the regulation reads that the commissioner may allow FSI up to 5. So basically you need a minimum 12-meter road, because the FSI is 3 for a 12-meter road, 4 for a 18-meter road and above, and 5 for a 27-meter road or above. Having said that, if your plot is industrial and you convert it to commercial, then if your zone is converted, you are eligible for this. But the FSI aspect of 3, you require a minimum 12-meter road. That criteria is required to be fulfilled. Now, the FSI of 5, up to 5, let's assume that the property is on a 30-meter or a SV road or a LBS road or on a road which is more than 27 meters. So FSI is up to 5, which includes the permissible FSI as per regulation 30A, table number 12. Now, table number 12, regulation 30 is the bread butter FSI table of the DCPR. So where you can see the base FSI is 1.5 government FSI, 0.5 TDR, 2, or maybe 0.5 government FSI, 0.7 TDR, 0.5 FSI, 0.9 TDR, one base FSI. So FSI 2, 2.2, 2.4, and 2.5 FSI in the suburbs, and in the city, the same way 1.33 FSI plus 0.64 plus point something like that. And the FSI is 1.33, it goes up to 2, 2.4, 2.7, and 3 FSI. So the FSI under regulation 30 can be used first. It has to be used first. And subsequently, then you can use the balance additional FSI as per your road width. So the regulation reads, as per the provision of regulation 30A, so your FSI can be given, commercial FSI can be allowed up to 5, including the permissible FSI as per regulation 30, where the permissible FSI as per table 12, regulation 30 has to be utilized first, and the additional FSI under regulation 3319 has to be utilized subsequently. This is the first part of the 3319. It says that residential zone, commercial zone, or industrial zone converted into commercial zone can develop up to 5 FSI depending on road width, where they can use the 30 regulation and the remaining additional FSI for 3319, and they can go FSI up to 5. Now, the additional FSI allowed, there are certain conditions where it is barring it. So additional FSI allowed for plots not reserved existing. Now, you cannot have, subject to the conditions, additional FSI will not be allowed for reserved plots. It will not be allowed for existing amenity, for any public purposes, except the DP road. Now, the regulation always mentioned that DP road ka FSI should be given in 3319. It was supposed to be on gross in a way. DP road was, including the DP road, the FSI was supposed to be 5. However, in the regulation, in the table, last table below it, there was a small anomaly where it said FSI is restricted even everywhere. We'll go and see that later on so I can understand what the corrigendum was. So whatever is green is the corrigendum, which was subsequently clarified by the government. So the development of reserve plot, though it is barred, but development of reserved plots and existing amenity in CBD shall be governed by the provision of this regulation. So in case the reserved area, reserved thing and existing amenity is being developed within the provision of 3319, they can be developed under 3319. There have been many instances of a regular plot and a reservation plot under AR policy 17 being developed together with the potential of CBD FSI proportionately. So that's the part of it. Now coming to the main and most important part of CBD, your FSI is 5, and you can actually theoretically use a part of it for residential. So what does the residential mean? Because residential purpose to the extent of 30% of your FSI can be used. But the sad part is that it's not 30% of 5, it's not 1.5 FSI. It is 30% of the FSI permissible under the provision of regulation 30. So on a plot abutting a 30-meter road or a 27-meter road, your regulation 30 FSI is 2.5. And the additional FSI under 3319 is 2.5. So you have 5 FSI divided into 2 components, 2.5 of your regulation as per 30 and 2.5 as per regulation of CBD. So the 2.5 of your regulation 30% of that area can be developed for residential purposes. So that's a very wonderful thing. So you can get the benefit of an enhanced FSI, yet you can do a part of it residential. Maybe if you are doing a redevelopment and somebody wants to live in the same premises again, you can probably think of doing even society redevelopment under CBD, but not taking the 33(7)(b) incentive, of course, because 30% you can do residential and probably do the rehab portion of the society. But this 30% cap of regulation 30 is on net plot area, not on gross plot area. That's what it reads. So regulation 30 cut 30%, which is a very, if you look at the regulation in a very fair manner, every plot abutting a 27-meter road is eligible for 2.5 FSI. So you get 2.5 FSI, आप TDR खरीद रहे हो, आप government FSI खरीद रहे हो, और आप CBD कर रहे हो, you're taking another 2.5 from the government by paying money premium to them. But for the 2.5 FSI, which you are doing the regular development, 30% of it can be residential. Now this is it's basically derived from the earlier regulation 1991, where regulation 51 was R1, R2, C1, C2. C2 zone was regulation 54. Under regulation 54, it was permitted, 30% residential was permitted. So they are currently permitting 30% residential of 2.5 or 2.2 or 2.4 to be constructed as residential. The remaining has to be commercial. Now the cost of this additional FSI beyond the TDR and the government FSI which you are going to buy is, in the DCPR it was charged at 50% of ready reckoner rate. Commercial premium was at 50% of ready reckoner rate. Government FSI was at 60%. Having said that, government came up with a notification on the 20th of August 2019 for a period of 2 years. Now the additional FSI cost is only 40% of ready reckoner. And after the reduction which has come in recently, the cost of FSI for commercial will be only 20% of ready reckoner. So it is the cheapest you'll be ever able to buy FSI in the next 11 months to come. Till December 2021, the FSI cost is going to be the cheapest, but you should be trading very carefully when you do such kind of a decision on your real estate projects. So provision of inclusive housing is not applicable in this plot. So even if your plot is 5,000 square meter or 10,000 square meters, inclusive housing is not applicable to you. The reason being you are doing a CBD and there's going to be hardly any. Only 30% residential is permitted within the regulation framework. So this is the first part of the regulation. Everybody actually reads the regulation as a toto, but in the same regulation, there is a proviso. Then I think we should read this proviso very, very carefully. So the first part of the regulation is over, that you can go up to 5 FSI with 2.5 FSI as per regulation, and the remaining 2.5 you can take as additional FSI, or you can take 2.2 as regulation 30 and 0.8 as additional FSI, or you can take 2.4 as FSI regulation under 30, and you can take 1.6 as additional FSI. But provided that in case of entire, let's say somebody is doing no residential in his, then he is entitled to what? Provided further that in case the entire commercial development is on a plot of commercial in residential zone of more than 12 meters road and satisfied all the other provision of this regulation, the commissioner may allow FSI as detailed below, which is in the next table, including the permissible FSI as per regulation 30 for commercial. So the commissioner can actually allow, what I read in this regulation is that the commissioner can allow कि आप TDR मत खरीदो, आप government FSI मत खरीदो, you buy only CBD FSI, additional FSI at 50% of ready reckoner, and you can go up to 5 FSI. This is what the regulation is, and it's a proviso. It's proviso beyond what the first part reads, that provided further if you're doing full commercial with no residential at all, you're not doing that 30% residential, then you are eligible to take everything as additional FSI by paying 50%, which is now reduced to 40, then it will be reduced to 20 till December. Now, here the anomaly is what the corrigendum required was for commercial development, excluding area covered under reservation designation in the DP, except affected by road. So here also it was very clearly mentioned that the deduction of FSI 5 is only the reservation has to be deducted. The road need not be deducted for the purpose of FSI. And this is on the payment of premium. In this case, no residential will be allowed. So obviously here, so this except road was always there in the regulation. However, what had happened is that subsequently in this regulation, this table was there. So as per the table, the FSI was 3, 4, and 5, as you can see as per the road width. So the FSI was 3, 4, and 5. And in the note below, it was mentioned on the plot area, excluding area to be handed over to MCGM, appropriate authority in lieu of reservation of existing amenity in the DP. So it was written existing amenity, proposed roads, prescribed RL, etc. Now this yellow, the green thing, except affected by a proposed road, was introduced in the corrigendum, which was dated 24th of September 2020. So the regulation 3319 came on the 12th of November 2018. And after which it took us 2 years to understand that CBD was on gross plot area, not on net plot area. It was including the road. Now, having said that, the residential component is as per regulation 30, which means it will be on the basis of calculation as per 30, which is on the net plot area. Uska 30% you'll get residential. So overall 3319 is a scheme. When we have, it has been clarified in cases now that 30% residential is permitted. Now, in case your residential component in any redevelopment is very minimal, so let's say on a 5 FSI, theoretically speaking, your FSI of residential permitted would be 0.75. So that is what is this thing. And in case of 2.4 FSI, your FSI residential will be restricted to 0.72. And in case of 2.2, it will be restricted to 0.66. So out of 5 FSI, your residential can be 0.75. Out of 4 FSI, your residential can be 0.72. And out of 3 FSI, your residential can be 0.66. So this is the component of 3319, where you have one of the highest FSIs available for you for redevelopment. So 3319 is a wonderful regulation as regards FSI is concerned. Having said that, I've told you all the goodies about it. So I've just got another some time to tell you one thing which you should be very careful as developers or architects when you propose it to somebody. So the points to evaluate when you do any calculation of 33.7B or even 3319, more so for 3319. The reason being is that the FSI is enhanced, which means that you have to understand that you're going to pay money for those FSI. There will be a cash flow, the premiums will be higher. And when you build higher or taller or you build more, your time factor of the project is also going to be delayed. So you're going to have a lot longer time factor interest component to understand when the project is of higher FSI or a taller building. Now, that's why as a consulting engineer or licensed surveyor, as I call everybody calls me an architect, but it's just an anomaly. It's just a word which everybody generally calls. I am a licensed surveyor. So I always tell all my clients that please go for optimization. Don't go for maximization. The time of maximization of your FSI is gone now. We have to only optimize your FSI, because sometimes building more is probably not giving you more money. Building more probably may give you less money, and probably sometimes building a little lesser can give you more profits and more money in the long run or in the run of the project duration. That's one part of it. And the second part of which we need to understand when regulation 3319 is considered is that whenever the commercial building goes beyond 32 meters, it becomes a high-rise 32 meters, high-rise commercial. Unlike residential, where you can go up to 70 meters with one staircase, in case of a commercial development, you have to go for 2 staircases in case of commercial development. That's the key aspect of commercial development. That whenever so that's why when you are opting for a 3319 in a very small plot, you should understand that you're going to have 2 staircases and those 2-3 elevators. So you have to understand whether your office area is going to be worthy space and it's going to be efficient enough that way. So very careful, you have to see when you're building more than 32 meters. Larger plots absolutely should go ahead and do this, maybe wing wise. But on smaller plots, you should be careful whether you want to go for maximization or you should rather go for an optimization. Also, one more aspect which we need to understand is that the open space deficiency, when you go for a CBD, there is nowhere in the DCPR it is mentioned that when you take additional FSI for CBD, there is any relaxation in open space deficiency. Like for slum TDR, it is at 10%, for fungible, it is at 25%. But for CBD FSI, it is at 100%. So if your deficiency area increases because of your height of the building, your open space premium is going to be really very high. So I've seen projects of 1,000 square meters where the open space deficiency is upwards of 14-15 crores. So which of course with the 50% it will come down, but the deficiency you have to keep an eye on the open space deficiency premium, so that when you design a building, you have an eye on the open space deficiency premium. So that's one aspect which I needed everybody to understand when I was referring to 3319. So it's a wonderful thing that you built a CBD FSI, and it's really one of the very interesting parts of building FSI. And with this current trend of FSI, I'll just end my show and stop my sharing. So the current 3319 regulation is amazing as far as commercial is concerned. Now, after me, Milind is going to speak, and he's going to tell how amazing it is going to be to increase your residential as well. So now we know one aspect of how to increase your commercial and also do a bit of residential in it. We can. And having said that, the regulation, one thing which I would like to clarify is that this additional FSI for CBD is not the commissioner's, it's not a concession, because I had sent one file to the commissioner because in the regulation it is not written with the special permission of the commissioner. So that's why CBD FSI can be granted at the executive level, at the zonal level itself. And I have got a file reference where the chief engineer has signed it as a policy and the commissioner has approved it, that CBD FSI, there are so many commercial premises which would want to go for regularization using CBD. So if there is no use of fungible, there is no open space deficiency, you can actually regularize it at executive level. So anybody who wants, you can always come back to CY Corp and we will tell you how to. It's not like that. I'll tell you the file number. I'm sure I'll share the file number. So CBD FSI need not go to commissioner. The only places for which you need to go to the commissioner is staircase premium exemption, for open space deficiency, and for fungible. These are the three criteria apart from the other small things. So this is as far as 33.7b and 33.19 is concerned. I hope everybody understood what I tried to understand. It is the simplest one. The next one coming is the key one. In fact, I'm going to be very keen to listen to Milind, because 33.12b is the real rocking one. So that's it from my side, Ashok ji and Rishabh. So I think I give it back to you. I think I've taken my time. I've done it 2 minutes earlier, I believe.
Thank you, Yomesh. Are we going to enlighten others about the premium rebate that we've got? Are we going to talk about that also?
We can. I can talk. I have not covered it in my presentation. Milind has covered it. But having said that,
okay. So Milind will take it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe in the I have not covered it, but I have done an analysis of the premium reduction, because it's come with a caveat of stamp duty paying. Milind has done a fantastic presentation, but in a nutshell, I would say that when your FSI is lesser, let's say your 2.2 FSI, or when the rehab is very large or the sale is very less, you can go for the scheme. But when your FSI is more, the sale area is more, then your premiums are more, everything is more. But you should be a little careful whether you should opt for the new regulatory 50% reduction, because the reduction has come in, but you have to use the earlier land rate when it was higher. The land rate has also reduced by 10%. So it's a very catch-22 situation. Every developer, every case to case, you have to decide whether it is really, really essential for you. Also, there's going to be a cash flow issue, because it's not going to get installments. Probably it will not get. If we get till December, we'll be very happy. So cash flows could be another aspect where we need to consider whether we should opt for the 50% reduction. So it's absolutely case-to-case basis where we can opt for. Having said that, we can again take it together.
So you're saying that this is optional?
It is optional.
You have a choice.
It is. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is not mandatory. It is an option.
Okay. Thanks once again.
So, Rishabh, I think
great.
You want me to start my presentation?
Yeah. Milind, please. We are all anxious to hear that. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I think good evening, friends. And my sincere thanks to the entire NAREDCO team, Niranjan ji, Rajan ji, Ashok ji. When Niranjan ji says that he wants to learn, actually, it's an inspiration for all of us that we have to keep learning all our lives. So this is a great webinar series Ashok ji has encapsulated to start, a reality bridge, which is to need to bring all of us together to share a platform on this platform of the knowledge between all of us. And now the next three regulations are the two regulations I'm going to talk about is 33.12 and 33.7a. And then we'll be discussing the premium savings and various calculations on various scenarios. 33.12 actually, it's got actually a win-win situation. where the city needs to have infrastructure projects, road widening projects, and there are a lot of structures that are coming in this alignment of the road. And it's going to give us more FSI. At the same time, MCGM is going to get free units for themselves to rehabilitate these project affected people. Now, 3312 is made into two parts, 3312A and 3312B. In both the schemes, we have up to an FSI of 4 on the net plot currently. Now, 3312A is actually redevelopment of contravening structures included in TP schemes. And 3312B is the removal and reaccommodation of tolerated or protected structures coming in the alignment of road. Both these schemes actually work on a very similar principle as far as the FSI is concerned. As I mentioned, it is FSI of 4 on net plot, and it can be combined with any schemes that you are doing, combinations of schemes, whether it is regulation 30, 33.7, or any other scheme that you want to intend to do. And you can get this additional difference FSI from this particular scheme, where 67% of the total FSI of that additional FSI will go as PAP construction, and 33% will come as a sale incentive. Before I get into the FSI calculation, we've done a very detailed calculation for you along with the premium calculation and the cost that will come to you. Let us understand certain basics, and I've made a very Q&A after this like a session, so that all your questions are also mostly answered in this. Just to encapsulate before we get into a more detail, what is 3312A? You see, in TP schemes earlier, there were plots which are haywire, and when the TP scheme was planned on it, the final plot and the original plot had a difference. And there were a lot of structures which were coming in this difference of the plots. And these are called contravening structures. So 3312A, I mean, most of these contravening structures can either be either in certain reserved sites or certain DP roads or what was being planned for that entire scheme. And these structures which are coming in between them are called contravening structures, which they want to remove. And to remove them, they have to provide these PAPs within the same wall. So these schemes come under 12A. Under 12B is actually for the rest of the city. And city, I mean suburb as well as city. So any schemes in suburbs, whether it's Bandra to Kandivali or anywhere, can go under the scheme, where everywhere you need to do road widening projects, the city needs infrastructure. And there are structures which come in the alignment of this road, which need rehabilitation, can be provided in our schemes, and we get an incentive FSI for that. In this 3312B, there are two types of basically structures that the scheme needs to be envisaged. One is called a tolerated structure, and one is called a protected structure. What are tolerated structures? These are actually structures which are prior to 17th April 1964 for residential, and for non-residential, these are prior to 1st April 1962, which are falling in the alignment. And what are protected structures? Well, they are to be defined by the government from time to time, but there is a 2017 policy of the road widening and the road of the MCGM, where these are defined as the slum structures coming in the alignment of road. So all the structures of slums prior to 1/1/2000, which are in the alignment of roads, can be reaccommodated in these structures. The fungible compensatory area for the rehab component is free without charging premium. The minimum area you're supposed to give is 300 square feet. Now the next question comes is, who will certify these tenements? So the tenements which are coming in the alignment of road, if these are non-cess structures or these are slum structures, they will be certified by the assistant commissioner of that local ward. But if these are cess structures in the city, they will be certified by MADA. Now, you know, there is that protected structures I just mentioned to you. These are mainly slum structures, or tolerated structures are prior to 64. But what happens to structures which are between 64 and 2020 and they're authorized? Which category do they come into? So the UD has not issued any clarification for these kind of structures, whereas it needs to issue a clarification that even these structures which are authorized become part of tolerated structures or protected structures, either of the two. So that definition needs to be widened somewhere. The most common question we come to know, what is the carpet area when you say 300 square feet we have to give to them? What is the carpet area we should give it to? Whether it will be RERA or whether it will be MOPA? Or what is the kind of carpet area it will be considered? Well, you see in 33.7 or redevelopment schemes like 33.9, 33.10 or even 33.5, The definition of carpet area is very well defined, and it's almost as good as saying MOPA carpet to a certain extent, where it says the carpet area within the tenements, excluding the walls, but including the balcony if free at those regulations. Whereas wherever this particular definition was to be used, the DCPR has incorporated it. So this particular definition is there in 5, 7, 9, 10, but it is not there in 3312. Since it is not there in 3312, the definition of carpet area will be as per the principal definition, which is RERA carpet area. So here you have to give 300 square feet as per the RERA carpet area. Now coming to the calculation part, I'm showing you two scenarios, and then we'll get on to the cost part also. So suppose on the left side of the slide, what you see is a plot without an affected by any setback. So if it's a 500 square meter plot, and the total FSI as per 4 you'll get is 2000 square meters, and assume that you're getting around 3 or 3.06 FSI from various other schemes, then the balance FSI you can claim under 3312 is around 470 square meters, of which 67% is PAP approximately. When I say approximately, you cannot numerically directly say that 314 square meters is the rehab, because you have to give X number of tenements. So each tenement being 27.88 into 1.2 is 33.45. You have to divide, and you're getting 9.41 as a number of tenements if you see row number 9. But you cannot give 9.4 tenements. You cannot have half a tenement. So you have to give 9 tenements. There's no half tenement concept. Saying that, you give 9 tenements into 33.45, and whatever is the FSI, 50% of that is what you get as incentive. So you get around 150.53 square meters. So a lot of the times the error that we make is numerically we calculate, and we forget that the half tenement cannot be created, and the FSI of sale is increased. And in city, even or suburbs, wherever we talk about, every square feet in Bombay is very, very expensive. We cannot make mistakes, and it can be a mistake of 2-3 crores. So a difference of 30 square meters can make a difference of almost 1.2 crores. So coming to that, again with the fungible, you are going to see, if you see row number 14, total FSI that you're getting is 609 square meters, of which the sale is around 150 plus the 35% fungible. Whereas on the right side, if you see, right now it is actually taken on net plot. Now here in 3312A, it is very clearly mentioned that the FSI of 4 will be on final plot. So there is some ambiguity, and there is some appeals which are people are pending to the UD that it should be considered as a gross plot in 3312A. But till that time, all your calculations will have to be done on net plot calculations. And but still, this scheme, even if after net plot you get 87 square meters instead of 83 square meters instead of 150 square meters, we will now get on to the costing part. So assume that what is the cost per tenement to you? I would say I will not do the calculation for the entire scheme. What I've done is calculations only. Say if you provide one tenement of 33.45 square meters, you are getting 16.73, and with the sale, with the fungible and all that, it will be 50. Your total FSI is 50 square meters, of which rehab is around 11 and 5.85 is sale. So around 16.73 plus 5.85 is around 20-21 square meters you're getting per tenement of 33.45. Considering all the premiums that you need to pay, all the premiums that you need to pay, your cost per square feet is coming to around 23,847 per square feet on RERA carpet area. This is on square feet I've calculated. And the ready reckoner I've assumed is 1,02,800 per square meter for all the premium calculations. So here, even after providing all the premium cost, I'm assuming the sale cost will be at least 30,000 per square feet. There is still a good amount of profit of around 10 to 12,000 rupees a square feet. And in certain structures, like say tolerated structures, which are prior to 64, which are authorized buildings, there even transfer of tenancy is legally allowed. So even with adding the cost of transfer of tenancy, the cost per square feet of the per tenement is coming to only 19,000 per square feet. So this scheme become almost add to the viability, because if you're able to consume the FSI on your particular plot, the cost per square feet is around 19 to 20,000 rupees a square feet. If you're selling at 32,000 also, it's actually a reasonable profit of 30% additional. So this particular scheme will enhance a lot of the schemes in suburbs as well. If you can do combination scheme with 3312. Of course, there were questions in the question answer that 3311 can be done. Of course, 3311 also can be done, but it is an independent scheme. It's not a combination scheme. There you have principal FSI and the balance FSI shared in a particular ratio. Whereas this particular scheme, you can do a combination scheme and the balance can be done in this scheme. When you're doing the scheme, I think there are certain obligations which are most important, and I think there is certain modifications also required. The first obligation the DCR stipulates that you need to do as an owner and developer is that you are supposed to execute tri-party agreement with the owner of the plot also, because once you rehabilitate the structures in your scheme, the plot is vacant and the plot has to be handed over for the purpose of road widening to corporation. But they are expecting us to execute a tri-party registered agreement, which is actually unfair because the owner did not come to us. The MCGM has provision under MRTP to directly acquire a setback line, which is coming in there. And if it's not built up, the built up is already removed by us. If the land is remaining there, then MCGM can acquire by following due process of law. And why I'm saying this is because, the owner of the plot is not eligible for 2.5 times the FSI or the TDR, which you generally got for handing over of the setback. Here he's going to get only as per zonal FSI. So that means he'll either get FSI 1 in suburb or FSI 1.33 of the plot which is handed over, because there is an incentive given to the you as a project proponent for rehabilitating the tenements. So the owner will always be reluctant to hand over the land if we have to enter into a tri-party agreement. MCGM actually should be taking more proactive step here if they want their road widening projects to be executed, where there is a process under MRTP Act. They have a very detailed policy under 2019 where they can issue notices to the owner and acquire the plot. Also, the schemes right now is undergoing a lot of SOP procedures are being formulated where they do not want you to take random PAPs here and there in the city. They are going to identify priority roads, and they are going to say, okay, you take PAPs only from these priority roads. Now, when you identify priority roads, the owners of that plot know that you have to come to them. So again, that negotiation is going to be a deadlock. So here we will need intervention from the corporation. We will need intervention from the corporation to avoid and delete this condition where we have to execute tri-party agreement with the owner of the plot. Tenants rehabilitation is fine, and handing over those structures by demolishing those structures to the corporation is fine. But issuing a tri-party agreement with the owner of the plot, I think should be the responsibility of MCGM. As I already mentioned, that this scheme can be done in combination of scheme with any of the schemes that you are doing right now. There is no restriction. A lot of the times we get this question, can I give the tenement a higher area? Or can I give him as per the floor plan that I'm already constructing in my design? So I have already added a note sheet here, which is a rejection by the chief engineer himself. You cannot give odd size of flats to these PAPs, like say 42.75, 67 square meters, 60 square meters, 61 square meters. No. You can give them area which is either certified by the ward officer, that is the assistant commissioner, if he's already occupying a larger area, more than 300 square feet, and if it is being certified by the ward officer, you can give him that particular area plus the fungible. Otherwise, you have to give him whatever is prescribed there. You cannot give him additional area. Yes, if you have a registered agreement and if it's not a slum structure and if it's a tolerated structure and if he's buying additional area, that's a separate matter. But as far as the initial NOCs are concerned or the initial process is concerned, you have to provide an area either what is given by the ward officer or 300 square feet plus fungible, nothing more than that. In terms of planning, you have to understand what I've written is around 3 options, but the crux of the matter is that if you propose to consume this FSI, if you have larger flats, you will need less number of floors. If you have smaller flats, you will need more number of floors. Again, schemes which have podiums in planning will not be able to consume full potential of 4. So you will need a mechanized car parking system. So I think when you start your scheme, you'll have to be more careful that if you're going for 3312 as a combination scheme, you'll have to ensure that you go for mechanized system or you keep provision of additional height in your scheme to consume the FSI that is getting from 3312. Coming to the next part of the regulation, is 33(7)(a), which is reconstruction, redevelopment of dilapidated and unsafe buildings of tenanted non-safe buildings in city and suburbs. The most important part here is dilapidated and unsafe. That means you need to get it declared dilapidated under 354. Here, the FSI is given like this, whether the FSI will be whatever is the existing authorized area plus 50% incentive area will be given to you at no cost. Now, after you calculate your rehab plus incentive, if it is less than the permissible FSI as per regulation 30 under table 12, which is given to you, the balance can be consumed as per that. But here there is a little bit amount of controversy. You see, under the 33(7)(a) sub-regulation 10, it says that for the purpose of calculating FSI for tenanted building, the entire area of the plot layout, including development plan with internal plan roads and internal roads, but excluding the land and the reservation of public amenities. That means is as well as saying that similar to 3319, which Yomesh was just explaining to us, where the clarification is issued by the government, a clarification will be required here also, because currently NCGM is allowing FSI net plot only, even though this is a very similar condition which is mentioned in 3319 and it is out here to allow the entire area of the plot for the purpose of FSI. So this will have to represent to them. There are more aspects that needs representation. These are mainly clarifications. These are not modifications in the regulation. The other aspect is what you have to understand, the tenancy, the consent required is 51%, and the tenancy will be certified as per the inspection extract of 13/6/1996. So anybody has formed instead of 1 flat, 2 flats, even in 2000 years, and now it's been more than 20 years, he cannot be certified as a separate tenancy. Suppose if somebody is occupying 1000 square feet, then the incentive will not be on 1000 square feet. The incentive will be maximum on 753 or 70 square meters only. The modification of 33(7) increased from 70 to 120, but in 33(7)(a), it's still retained as 70 square meters. There is a development cess applicable here, which till August 2021 will be in abeyance, but post August 2021 and development cess will be applicable, which is either 5,000 rupees a square meter or equivalent to the development charges. There is a time frame maintained here that within 1 year from the date of demolition, you have to complete the project within 5 years. But there is no mention as to what happens if it doesn't happen within 5 years. Does the government take over? Does the tenants can come forward and do self-redevelopment? Certain clarity is needed here on that aspect. It also says that corpus to be provided has to take care of the maintenance of the building for a period of 10 years. Now this word maintenance, is a very tricky word. Maintenance of building doesn't include cost of property tax, cost of your watchmen and other areas. It is maintenance of the building. That is the RCC cost of construction, and to maintain that building from either waterproofing or lifts or other aspects. It is that cost that you have to take care into maintenance aspect. Fungible for existing is without premium, and 20% of the incentive FSI can be used as non-residential also. The process flowchart, as I explained to you, is very simple. You'll have to first declare the existing building dilapidated using 354 notice, and notice to pull down has to be obtained. After the building is declared dilapidated, the ward officer will certify the tenants. And after the certification of the tenant, you can go to the building proposal with the 2 certificates in your hand, and then thereafter. The consent formats. Now the consent, you have to understand that unlike in MADA and 33(7), we have only an 10-point consent. Whereas here there are 13-point consents. Here they have also mentioned at clause number 11 that he can revoke his consent through court or by following due to process of law. So there are certain additional points in this consent which have been mentioned, and this is the particular format you're supposed to use for the consent. There is also a clarification issued by the UD. There are a lot of queries that, the buildings were demolished in 2009 and work is ongoing. Can we claim benefit of incentive? No, you cannot. It says that only if the structures were standing as on 27/5/16 and it complies with all the other guidelines mentioned herein, then only it can avail this particular incentive FSI. So a lot of the ongoing schemes were getting affected, which were prior to 2016. Certification of the list, the formats are finalized. The tenant list formats are finalized. Here they have missed out in terms of MCGM, the details of common carpet area and balcony. Because in 33(7)(a), the definition of carpet area has been again mentioned very clearly that it will be the area within the wall, but including balcony and even common carpet area. So it's very similar to 33(7), but the tabular form that has been prepared by the corporation needs an amendment. Now, I think we are coming down to the topic that all of us have been waiting for a long time on the premiums and versus the stamp duty impact. And let me first list down the various premiums. There are more than 20 premiums that we're talking about out here. Not all of them are getting reduced, like scrutiny fee, IOD deposit, debris deposit, development charge, development cess, estate one-time premium, transfer premium, labor FSS, extra water charges, sewerage charges, capitation fee, LUC. They are not getting reduced. What is getting reduced is only these aspects. Of course, there can be few additions here and there, but open space deficiency premium will be reduced by 50%. By you paying an X premium. And this FSI also is covered, fungible FSI. AVS premium is artificial ventilation shaft. When you're providing artificial ventilation shaft and there is a deficient side, there's a condonation premium, I2R premium, RG condonation premium. Then there is additional FSI under 33.2, 33.3, 33.4. These are all additional FSIs. Development says it is not applicable out here. But what you have to understand that post August 21, development says will come into play. Premium for condonation for handing over of land in 14A, which is 35%. I mean, if you're not able to hand over the land, there's a premium involved. So any heading which has a premium attached to it, or condonation premium or additional FSI premium, is covered under this reduction scheme. And any other charges, whether it's LUC charges or whether it's estate charges at present, they are not covered under this 50% scheme. What I've done is now I'm taking a series of 3 examples for you. The first example I'm taking for the city projects under 33.7, and where there are composite schemes where the rehab is more than the sale, the rehab is at least 50% of the sale, or it's an incentive scheme matter. What we have realized that the total cost of these premiums, not all the premiums, but the premiums which are getting reduction. If you see the parameters are on the left side that we have taken, but most importantly, what you have to see is the table B on the right side that we are talking. And we have taken the sale rate from the ready reckoner rate. So say starting from point number 1, the August, the fungible cost is 2.4 crores. The staircase lift premium is nil in case of composite buildings. Open space deficiency is only 10%. That is 2.5%. We have actually in 25 that dot is missing. So the total premium without the deduction is coming to 3.9 crores. And after the deduction, if you avail the 50% scheme, is coming to 1.95 crores. Whereas the up to March 31st, the stamp duty is 3% on the entire sale plus fungible. And that cost is coming to 1.76 crores. Now, I'm assuming that your sale price is on par with ready reckoner rate. If the sale price is higher than ready reckoner rate, then this cost is going to be further coming down. It's only 18 lakhs out here. Now, after August 21, what happens? You see, after August 21, the fungible cost increases from 35 to 50% because the circular is valid only till 20th, from 20th August 2018 till 2021 for a period of 2 years. Then this thing is going actually in a loss. Just a minute. So then there is a loss of almost 46 lakhs out here. So in case of composite buildings of 33.7, where you've got already benefits under open space deficiency and the staircase lift, this particular scheme is not really viable for you. Of course, case to case basis, they need to look into it. That doesn't say that the schemes become viable because this thing is you're not taking this benefit, because there are a lot of other costs like the estate cost, which is introducing one-time premium and transfer charges. And the Department of Estate is reluctant to give this benefit of 50% because they are thinking that they are as a land owning authority and not a planning authority. However, that can be debated on some other platform. At present, these are the facts of the matter that these departments are not going to offer. So the overall viability in these projects are still lower comparatively. So most of the city cess projects which are under composite schemes are neither benefiting nor are they becoming viable in terms of execution. However, assume the second example now. Say this 33/7 scheme is for a non-composite buildings. There again, the difference is, there is an open space deficiency is now increased to 10%. In 1991, it was only 2.5%. In 2034, they made it 10 times of that. Now, on 18th November 2020, there was a draft modification already published where the government has recognized that you cannot charge this premium 10 times. And it should be 2.5% as per the earlier notification. However, once the suggestion objection is completed and the process of 37(2) is done, then probably some relief will come to those schemes. But on a notional basis, only on a notional basis, if we assume that these costs continue, then what we can see on the right side, that the total cost of premium today is 11.64 crores for a 1,000-meter plot. On 50% reduction, it will be 5.8 meters, 5.8 crores. Now, this 5.8 crores, you have to understand that there will be what they are intending possibly, and the policy is yet to be finalized, is a scheme of 10/90, where you will pay 10% now and 90% before December 31st. So you do not have much time. It will be only for a period of these 11 months, but also that will be at an interest possibly at 8.5%. So when you add the two costs of savings of 5.8 crores plus the 8.5% interest for the 90% of the cost, the total cost at the end of the year will be around 6.26 crores. But there is still a saving because the stamp duty is only 1.76 crores. So there is still a saving of 4.5 crores. Again, case to case basis, this will have to be seen from a sale price perspective. If your sale price is higher in your certain areas, or especially in corporates and all that, they have a markup or because of their brand value. There, the cost of stamp duty must be way higher, and this difference will keep reducing. But overall, in non-composite schemes, it seems on paper, on a notional basis, if the staircase lift premium and the open space deficiency premium remain as it is, there is a net saving. However, post August 21, when the additional FSI will be increased to 50%, then the savings is still there. It reduces from 4.5 crores to 3.8 crores. But there is still a good amount of saving out there. Now coming to the schemes of a residential development, say in suburbs, which are very similar to the non-composite schemes which we were just discussing. There again, because your open space deficiency of staircase lift, open space deficiency, is 6.25% for your fungible FSI, 25% for regular TDR, slum TDR is 2.5%. So combining all of those aspects of premiums, your total premiums without the deduction is coming to around 16 crores. 50% reduction is around 8 crores. With the installment and with the interest crores, is becoming 8.7 crores. And the stamp duty up to March 31st will be 1.7 crores, and probably beyond March 31st will be 2.8 crores. So there is a savings of around 7 crores to 6.4 crores in these schemes. As rightly said by Yomesh, it will not be that simple. It will be a very case-to-case basis, depending upon how much is the sale FSI, how much is the rehab FSI, and a combination of that will have to be done. But what you can use from this presentation are the headings under which these concessions are being granted, and the differential value can be calculated for your particular project. And you have to remember that they are expecting that the entire payment is made before 31st December. So there is an added input cost vis-a-vis if the sales are not pro rata. There's going to be a lot of burden on you in terms of the input cost. But if you are able to have good sales, because we are expecting, since you are going to give a rebate on the stamp duty to the end user, they may be or they may not be a saving, but because the end user is going to save, say a 3 crores flat is going to save directly 15 lakhs, or a 5 crores flat is going to save 25 lakhs. The end user might be looking to buy that, purchase that flat right in this particular year. So there may be a spurt of buying once this scheme is marketed more openly by each and everyone, or probably Naredco takes it forward as a scheme where more and more awareness is created among the buyers. Like we saw a good sales happening in December, we can see good sales coming in the few months down the line. And all of us can benefit from the sales, and there will be rotation, and the whole cycle of realty can move further. Thank you.
So thanks, Milind. Really, really enlightening. And I mean, I leave it to everybody, the audience here. Abhi, do we have Q&A right now?
So we have a couple of attendees who've raised hand, 3 of them. So if you want, we can ask them to raise a question out here. If Milind Bhai and Yomesh Bhai are okay with that.
I think there are some question and answers even on the dialog box. We can take them up, and yeah, of course we can ask questions.
Done. So Manoj Bhai is also there. We had a question that we had received on the email. So we've forwarded that to Manoj Bhai. Manoj ji, if at all you could raise a question to the panel, please.
Yeah, 1 minute. Somebody has asked a question saying that open space deficiency premium also will be reduced or not. So here, all types of premiums the government has stated. Of course, the onus is on municipal corporation to take out the circular. Government has given the suggestive guidelines as such in the GR. So corporation is going to amend this. So staircase premium, open space deficiency, all this will be included. So whatever reduction we are anticipating, that will be reduced in this case also. There is one more question which suggests that August 2019, the fungible premium and the additional FSI premium was reduced from 50% to 35%. Of course, the time limit was 2 years, which I think Milind has already covered up. So August 2021, it will come back to the original, unless obviously government extend that to up to December 31st, 2021. Otherwise, as it stands today, up to August 2021, it will continue to be 35%.
August, Manoj Bhai, 19th August 2021, because the notification was of 20th August. So till 19th August, you have that time.
Yeah. So that will be at 50% of 35%. After 19th August, as Yomesh rightly suggested, that it will be coming back to 50%. But obviously 50% will continue. So 50% of 50% it will be. So 25%. And right now it will be 17.5%. But I hope it will be pushed to December. So all date will be 31st December 2021 only. But as it stands, yes, August 2021, 19th of August, that rate will change from 35 to 50. So right now, at present, up to 19th August, it will be 17.5%. That is 50% of 35%. I think 2 questions were asked, and one more is, if we opt for development under 3319, we are proposing 100% commercial user in the proposed development. My plot is abutting to 30-meter wide road. In this case, I am eligible for 5 FSI. My question is, can I utilize CBD FSI instead of FSI as per DCPR 30A1? Actually, up to 2.5, you will have to follow 30A1. Beyond 2.5, yes, 3319 will come into the picture. So overall, yes, 5 FSI you can consume, and all this also will be at a reduced premium, which at present is 40%. So 40%, it will be applicable rate will be 20%. So in case of going for 50% reduction in premium, the stamp duty payment to be borne by developer, yes, that is the one of the condition where developer will have to give undertaking that stamp duty they will not be charging, and that is how it stays. So this even RERA also, they are going to connect it. So this is one of the condition. Really, developer will have to work out whether 50% rebate is more fruitful or the waiving of stamp duty vis-a-vis how it stands. So, and one more thing is 10th of January, because of the COVID period, they had extended. So payment that 9 months rate of interest was not applicable. So corporation is thinking of extending that 10th of January to maybe 10th of February or so. So all the developers will not be defaulters and they will be eligible for reduction in premium for those who were due on 10th of January as such. So that is one of the good thing which is going to happen. So we hope corporation comes out with the adequate circular as early as possible. Yeah, thank you.
Milind, I had a question for you.
Yes.
In my project, I'm making 10 apartments, and 4 I want to sell, and 6 I want to keep it for myself, for my family use. So, am I eligible to claim the reduction in premium and pay it off before August 21?
Yes, sir. In fact, there is a query that you've already sold certain flats, and now the balance flats are not sold, and you're going to claim the FSI this premium reduction on the entire balance thing. So I don't think the NCGM is going to get into the complications of what has already happened. So it will be a prospectively and not a retrospective effect. So whatever is the balance flats to be sold, and if you are not going to sell, it remains with you. So there is no question of any other implication. Only for the number of flats you're going to sell from this day onwards, the stamp duty for those particular number of flats has to be borne by you.
One small
till
addition.
possession.
Small addition, Ashok Bhai.
Yeah.
The issues of school, hospitals, hotels, those who are going to have a self-use, there is no sale. So for them, there is no direction. So corporation is going to write back to government saying that whether these projects are also included or not. So that also clarification will come in next 10 to 15 days. So we are covering up in our representation from NAREDCO. We will be writing to Municipal Commissioner. So in turn, they will write to UD Minister also and get the clarification. Those who are having self-use, suppose somebody is having a self-bungalow, there is no sale involved, or there is a hospital, or there is a hotel, or corporate offices are there, which companies are going to retain by themselves only. So if there is no sale, whether they are eligible or not, principally yes, but they need clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So there are 3 more questions I've received. I'll just read out and I'll just quickly solve them out. Will the fungible be applicable on incentive FSI in 33(7)(a)? So the incentive FSI fungible is applicable by charging premium. If there is a second question is that if there is a mismatch in the plot boundary between survey and CTS, will you get FSI on PR card or worst case? Always the worst case. And the OSD for commercial is double? Yes, it is double.
But I think, Milind, we have given representation that also from NAREDCO that it should be charged at the same rate, because in land rates, there is no differentiation between commercial and the residential. So premiums also, they should charge at the same level. But we hope government should take decision, favorably.
Are there any more questions, or you want to?
Milind bhai, I have 3 attendees who've raised their hands.
Please,
so do you want me to allow them to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I am allowing Vishal ji for the question. Vishal Paul. Vishal ji, you can ask your question, please. Unmute yourself and ask the question, please. Vishal ji, Vishal Paul.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to sound a bit naive because I'm not too well versed with all this. But does this DCPR apply to the MMR region? I mean, outside of Mumbai to the suburbs? If I have a piece of land over there, does it apply to that also?
It does. Yeah, Milind, you can answer.
You can take it.
Yeah, but it does not apply to. It will apply to only Mumbai jurisdiction as such. MMR, of course, new set of rules are there, but now already UDCPR is out, and that will be applicable to those areas. But the premium reduction, it is for entire Maharashtra. So entire Maharashtra can take advantage of whatever the premium criteria is.
Just out of curiosity, if this kind of a premium reduction and increase in FSI comes to Mumbai, a lot of sale happens. Does it affect the surrounding areas, in demand or anything like that? Is just a view?
I think Niranjan Bhai can answer better. Whether demand will be there.
Just to add to your query, you see currently post December, in fact, in the city limits, there is more demand and less supply, I would say. So there is actually a requirement of more demand. In the city of Bombay, the infrastructure is made for a consumption of FSI 4 plus fungible. So there is a component of the MCGM where the infrastructure is planned to cater to that higher FSI that we are planning.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So next, I'll allow Mr. Praveen Darvekar ji to raise his question. Mr. Praveen, please unmute yourself and ask a question, please. Praveen ji. Okay, in the meantime, let me ask Mr. Chandra Bhavan Tejuja. I will allow you to speak. Mr. Tejuja, please put your questions to the panelists.
I think there are a lot of questions pending, but I think one thing we can keep talking. I think Manoj Bhai, I and Milind, we are there, and of course everybody else. Dharmesh Bhai, there is one question on LUC. I'm sure you would be able to answer that because you have led a federation to fight. In fact, there have been, when the premium reduction has happened recently, before that there was a 23rd December, there was a cabinet minutes of meeting. So I think you should read the minutes of meeting along with the reduction notification of UD. So the minutes of meeting of the cabinet meeting, which was held on the 23rd of December, says that there will be no reduction in development charges. There will be no reduction in ULC because there is a Supreme Court judgment which has to be adhered to. And as regards LUC also, land under construction, the property tax matter, I think Dharmesh Bhai will be able to tell us, the young stalwart of NAREDCO, because there is a matter pending in Supreme Court. These people have been pursuing it relentlessly. I'm sure that would be come up because that unprecedented LUC tax on FSI has been contested, and I think it is nearing a Supreme Court decision where probably it will be coming to the legitimate conclusion. Dharmesh Bhai, if you can say something on that.
Yeah, I'm equally lost on that. What happened to the cabinet note remarks that were put, which were actually very valid. But currently what has happened is suddenly MCGM has taken up a very hard stance, and they've been issuing a lot of demands for 100% premium to be paid in spite of the court orders. We don't understand why the MCGM is not adhering to the High Court nor to the Supreme Court orders, wherein the courts have clearly said that you just have to pay 50% of the demand until the final hearing is taking place. But MCGM continues to issue threats with Section 202 and 204 of MMC Act. And we are in the process of filing a contempt petition against the officers and inform the Supreme Court of this. We've been trying to have a dialogue at various levels, but so far nothing has prevailed. All I can say is the Supreme Court hearings are scheduled to begin by the end of this month. And then a final hearing could be happening as soon as in February. Tentatively, there is a hearing scheduled on 25th of January, but I'm not sure because of the holidays back and forth in between those dates, how fruitful that hearing could happen. That's all the information I have and I can share at this point of time. But I don't know why BMC is not willing to understand, in spite of the rules being quashed by the High Court outright.
High Court, actually. LUC charges should be payable on the base FSI, not on the increased FSI. That is basic FSI, and that is what the even the cabinet meeting was discussed. But they have referred to the Supreme Court SLP petition of 17009 of 2019. So whatever is the decision that comes there, I'm sure it will help the entire city of Mumbai as regards the problem of LUC which Dharmesh Bhai you just mentioned.
Yeah. So there are a few more questions here. I will just read out a couple of them. What about premium in case of development where there is only lease and no sale? Of course, if there is no sale, then there is no stamp duty adjustments. I think you better stick to it and take your benefits. But the moment you do any sale, whenever you don't want to lease it out, you'll have to pay it for yourself. The second question is under 3312, the areas to be given to contravening PAPs is to be certified by ward. And if developer wishes to give additional area to contravening PAPs from sale area, well, you have to understand the process first. The process is that you're taking only a simple letter of certification from the ward and going for concession approval. At that stage, you have no agreement with the PAP owner. Then you have to provide only as per the area that is given in that particular letter plus the fungible. Once you enter into an agreement with that person, and if you want to give additional area, only in case of contravening, not in case of slum structures, there is a possibility that you can provide him additional area. There is no, you see, constitutionally, nobody can stop anyone from buying area if he's a legal tenement or a legal structure. It's his right to buy additional. But only in case of slum, to avoid misuse, they have introduced this restriction, you can say. And then there is a question: can a developer can a developer offer concession premium and not to sell any unit in this period? Is it allowed? Whether it is this period or not, if you have opted for the concession under this, what it says is that the stamp duty has to be borne by you. So you may not sell the unit in this year, but you may sell the unit in the next year. But since you have availed the benefit of the premium, they would expect you to compensate the buyer for that. That is the overall principle of the fundamental of the principle. So you cannot take since the benefit is only in this year, the benefit will be passed on to in this year itself. I think the essence of the rule has to be taken into consideration. And there is one last question which I got is, what is the mechanism to verify if the builders pay the stamp duty or don't overcharge the value of the flat? There is a mechanism in terms of self-certification or the self-declaration, you would call it. They will be coming up with a format where they must submit the kind of flats. If somebody wants to overcharge the value of the flat, there is no restriction. This is a democratic and a free world. And I can sell my value of my product at 1 crore or even 2 crores. You may not buy it. You may buy it from a person who is selling it at lesser price. But as far as the stamp duty burden is concerned, whatever is the stamp duty value on that particular document or the instrument that you are entering into will have to be borne. If the premium benefit is taken, will have to be borne by the developer.
There was one question about the society redevelopment under 33(7)(b). Recently, there has been a circular that the open space deficiency for society redevelopment will be at 75% of the normal. So for a regular development, if open space deficiency is 100 rupees, for a society redevelopment under 33(7)(b), the open space deficiency is at 75 rupees. Now, having said that, when this reduction comes in, the 50% reduction will be on 75. So you will be landed up paying open space deficiency of 37.5. So this is something which is there as a question. So that's one point which I wanted to clarify. Also in 33(7)(a), I think Milind has already covered that in 33(7)(a), already the open government FSI is reduced to 50% of 35%. There is a notification of 33(7)(a) that the regular premium will be at half, government FSI premium will be at half the 35. Now we have to see whether they'll give half of 17.5 or not. So then 33(7)(a) becomes the most lucrative tenant building but of course, provided everybody has to do a 354 notice, because it's mandatory to have a 354. There, I think the 30 years criteria is not there, Manoj bhai. It is just 354 tenanted building. Whereas in society, it's 30 years. Whether you have 354 in 25 years, it doesn't qualify. So that's the thing. Very interesting clarification. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we can't clarify a lot of things. But I think humanly, we'll have to interact and clarify a lot of things.
Well, one of the issues, Umesh, I think developers will be finding it difficult, because if there are suppose 3 wings, which I had clarified with Principal Secretary, and if there are 3 wings, you are availing concessions for only first wing. Other 2 wings you have still not proposed only. So the stamp duty issue will come for the A wing only, not the B and C wing, because that scheme you are not included in that. So that is how the things will be. It is for whatever built up area,
yes,
you are availing the premium concession that will apply. But developers will have to do it smartly. They cannot do it half and half. Or 2 floors are in premium and other floors are not there. It will create a lot of complication. So if there are multiple buildings or multiple wings, I think you need to plan out your project adequately. Because as it is, you are not going to cover up all the 3 wings in this 1 year. If you are doing it, well and good. But if you are not going to do that, you will have to clearly demarcate that. How we do it in RERA, every project is defined separately. So that we'll have to plan it out.
I think that is very well said, Manoj Bhai, that in case of larger layout with multiple wings, I think a developer and architect should sit together and strategize which wings or which buildings will be using the reductions. And likewise, in a single building, I think there would be no major complications because it's a single building. But in case of multiple wings, I'm sure, as Manoj Bhai, you rightly pointed out, because अगर आप हर building में 4 माले का आपने premium ले लिया reduction, then you are in a fix. Then you'll have to take the stamp duty. So rather than that, you have to strategize your benefit and pros and
reduction will be for 1 year, but you will be paying for 5 years for the stamp duty.
5 years, right.
So there are some more queries. There's one request from Mr. Umang Kovadia that can NAREDCO represent to estate department for reducing the one-time premium and transfer premium to 50% on lines of the state cabinet decision. I think we can definitely, Ashok ji might look into it and we can make a representation because it's quite a valid one. It's also a premium on the FSI.
We'll prepare, Milind.
Yeah.
Can you share the SLP number?
Yeah, it is 17009 of 2019.
Okay. The third question is Mr. Keval Vikram. Stamp duty to bond is 31st December or entire loaded. But you have to understand the essence of the regulation that if you are buying an ex FSI at a concessional rate before 31st December, if that sale component, then whether you sell in this year or next year, the stamp duty is on by you. The question is, can the installment policy club with the reduction in premium? Manoj, you want to take it up?
Yeah. Installment, how it will be, suppose 100 rupees you are required to pay, 10 rupees will be charged now and 90 rupees will be charged on December 31st with the interest for the backlog. And that is how it will be. Then the installment circular will not be applicable. It will just be 10% and 90%.
The next question is in case of self-redevelopment, stamp duty is payable for the new buyers. That is evident. But what about the extra area for the existing members?
The left pocket, you have to put it in the right pocket. So self-redevelopment, I think those questions will not come.
Correct. Fair enough. So these are the questions that we have. Abhijit, is there anything else?
So do we have time for a couple of more questions? We have 3 attendees who still raised their hand.
Not 10 minutes.
Yeah, can we take them?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I am actually taking Nitin Voraji for allowing to ask a question. Nitin ji, can you please unmute yourself and ask a question to the panelists, please? Nitin Voraji?
If his question is there on the chat box, can you read it out, Abhijit?
He's not put his question in the chat. I'll quickly check.
Then we'll take the next one. Who's ready?
I will ask Mr. Vittal to speak, please. No.
You have to unmute yourself and then speak.
Mr. Vittal, Mr. Nitin, Mr. Kumar, any one of the 3 can unmute themselves and ask a question, please.
One pertinent question, Milind and Yomesh, was regarding the lift duct, which we had represented through UD. You should charge only once. Of course, that is on a back burner. So what I think we should suggest, see if you can consider that as a duct 1.5 times if I count into FSI. Suppose it is a 50-story building. Now you calculate the quantum of premium vis-a-vis the FSI. Going just a duct of 3 square meter into 1.5 and whole 50 floor you are paying the premium. So this, I think even NBC says you should count only 1.5 times. And in Thane and all, they are counting just once because lift can stand at a time at 1 floor only. It can't stand on all 50 floors together. So that should be charged once only. That is what I think we should also have. Ashokji, I would request we should have one meeting with Principal Secretary. All these small issues are there. I think that will also bring a lot of relief to our industry.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So there are 3 more questions that have come. I will just read out. Is the 50% premium reduction directive will also be applicable to capitalized value, not compensation value, in case of municipal tenanted properties? Currently, no. We need to reduce the extra water charges, sewerage charges, and LUC by MCGM, but that's covered under the current, because these are charges and not premiums. It can be separately represented. And somebody has asked a question, but it's not related to our seminar, but GST on existing area of flat and redevelopment project. I think we don't have a GST expert here, but if somebody wants to take it up, it's fine.
GST on redevelopment is a big issue. I think that also NAREDCO needs to take it up at the central level, because once you are redeveloping, they are considering full as a market value and charging 5% on that. So that is ridiculous. I think, see, services you are offering, that should be on just on construction cost, and 18% they should charge. They should not charge considering because the existing flat was already there, and you are redeveloping. How can you consider that as a sale? So this anomaly is going on for last 2-3 years, and a lot of issues are pending with the tribunal, but no result has come. So this, I think we need to look at it maybe at a different forum as such.
I'll just add to this for a minute here. People have received notices from Service Tax Department for projects completed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Providing free housing on rehab component in 33.7 and 33.10.
Correct.
Right, sir. So
yeah,
I don't think so we have any more questions. So let me request our committee member, Mr. Kamlesh Thakur, to give a vote of thanks to all the attendees and panelists attended today's webinar.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much. Oh my God, what an interesting conversation we had. The Trimurti of Yomesh, Manoj Bhai, and Milind Bhai, unbelievable. The amount of information you have shared, in spite of all of us knowing, small details from our respective architects, but you have made such a brilliant, compilation, and no words of thanks are enough. And at the same time, I would like to thank our NAREDCO team to initiate this brilliant NAREDCO Realty Bridge seminar. Maybe there will be a lot of interesting topics which we propose, and we plan to take it ahead. And first ball pe sixer laga hai aaj. And at the same time, I don't want to miss Manoj Dubbalji and all the other team members of Pieta, who have been always advising and being a knowledge partner and being, experts on the subject, have collaborated with NAREDCO, MCHI, all of the industry partners to come together and resolve this situation that we were in. And thankful to also our leaders, Niranjan Bhai, Rajan Bandelkar sir, of course, our President Ashok Monani ji, to take this initiative and make this Realty Bridge event a brilliant success. I also want to thank to our sponsors, Mr. Godavari Paints, who have supported this event, and not but the least, the entire attendees who have come together and encouraged all these events, these thoughts that were in the minds, but success will happen only if there is an audience. So audience is also there, and the panelists have been excited to get all kinds of questions which they have raised, valid questions, and everybody is happy. I believe the thing has just started. We'll have to collaborate much more and fine tune these policies and await the final circular, which I think is expected in a couple of days' time. And hope we have better days ahead as we were hoping for. And as our country has good news, given us good news in cricket, आज हम impossible को achieve कर पाए हैं. वैसे ही as a team together, NAREDCO, Pieta, MCHI, all the industry bodies, all the leaders, we will be able to come out of this pandemic, the situation that we were in, and we will all see the happy days again. Thank you very much. Over to Abhijit. And
Abhijit, we do have our sponsor, Godavari Paints.
Unfortunately, he was traveling, so he couldn't join, but he's asked me to play the AV of their firm. So I'll run the AV right now.
The year was 1960. The construction and architecture industries were in for a pleasant surprise. The first Indian company to start manufacturing cement paint was set up. With the goal to be the most distinguished player in the market, we began our journey. By 1972, we also started to manufacture exterior and interior paints. And in 2014, we expanded by setting up a centralized plant at GIDC Vadodara, Gujarat, an ultra-modern plant with a production capacity of a whopping 12,000 metric tons per annum. We produce a wide range of exterior, interior paints and textures. We provide complete paint solutions for architectural coatings. We cater to a very niche clientele. We believe in precision and getting it right in a way that's good for everyone, including the planet. We believe in delivering green and eco-friendly products. They meet the green specs, have a low VOC value, and meet stringent global standards. Over the years, these high-quality paints gained popularity across the globe. And soon enough, we were awarded export awards from Capexin. All our products are produced with the latest state-of-the-art technology. And best quality of raw materials, and are backed with performance warranties. Needless to say, countless testimonials instill goodwill into our paints. Leading architects, consultants and government organizations not just recommend but insist on our paints. We have bagged awards from PwC and EPC as leading MSME paint manufacturers serving the construction industry. Godavari Paints has ranked in the top 10 MSMEs in the paint industry. But we see our achievements in the countless landmark projects that are protected by our paints through all seasons for decades. And we are experts in the execution of mega townships, making Godavari Paints Private Limited an ISO 9001 certified company. Today, as we celebrate 60 years, we look forward to the coming 60.